Hey guys, here is the much awaited lesson on modes. Now, quick word of warning here. These start off pretty slow, but they get complicated quickly. So if you're feeling like, I got this, no big deal, just be patient because it's going to get hard fast. So, we will start with a major scale. Now I want you to really think about what a major scale is for a second. If you think about it, it's essentially just a set of instructions, right? It tells you that you're going to start on some note that you choose, and then you're going to go over a whole step, and that's your second note, and then you'll go over another whole step, and that's your third note, then you'll go over a half step, and then a whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, right? And that's all it really is, a set of instructions. Now, this you can't play. This is abstract, right? There's no actual notes here yet. If we want to have something to play, we have to apply the instructions to, say, the keys. So let's just choose a note, like, for example, G, and we'll start applying the instructions. So you start on G, we go over a whole step, that gives us an A, then another whole step, gives us a B, then a half step, C, and then whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, right? Old stuff. I assume if you're watching a video on modes, then you already know how to do this. But what if we decided to try something new? So let's say we started on a G, we chose that as our first note, but rather than just starting at the beginning here and just kind of following the directions, we decided to start here, just because. So we start on a G, we go over a whole step, we get an A just like before, go over a whole step, we get a B, then we go over another whole step, and we wind up with a C sharp, which is interesting because that's not what happened before. Then we go over a half step, and we get a D. So this right here already is kind of cool because it's not a G major scale. G major scale is this, has a C natural in it. It's certainly not a G minor scale because a G minor scale would have this B flat and a C natural, so we don't have that. So we've essentially created something new, which is cool. So whatever this is, it's interesting, but it's kind of small, right? We sort of ran out of room on this little instruction set here and wound up with only 5 notes. It'd be nice to get a full 7 notes like we did for a major scale. Now, if you think about it, when you apply the notes of a major scale, if you start on G, for example, and you go all the way through whole step, half step, etc., you wind up on another G, right? And from there, we could apply those same instructions again. So we'd get G and then whole step, half step, and I'm out of keys, but you get the idea. And essentially, we could just keep repeating that pattern on through the octaves. So you can think of this as like a repeating set of instructions. So we could extend it out and say there's going to be another whole step, and then another whole step, and then a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, right? So that lets us keep going with this little experiment that we're doing. So starting on G again, doing this little thing needs to go whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. And when we get to here, we're back where we started. We're on another G. Now what we just created, as you might have guessed, is a mode. In fact, this is what's called the Lydian Mode. Now don't get too hung up on names. I don't know what the etymology is of Lydian, but we got to call it something, so you might as well call it the Lydian Mode. Now the Lydian Mode, this right here, it's very close to a major scale, right? The only real difference is that the C got raised up to a C sharp. Or a better way to say it is that note number 4, we raised it, or we raised the 4th. And that's all it really is. Now, even though this mode is really similar to a major scale, you can do some really cool things with it. Let's say, if I'm playing, say, a G major chord, or actually I'll play it in inversion since I don't have much room here. When you're playing a major scale, like with this C natural, a lot of times this C can sound really weird and clashes with that chord, but using this mode, I can get around that issue and I can do some kind of cool melodic things. Or let's say I had like a really simple melody. Just like in a major scale, so say this. Right, let's see if I can get some sustain going. Okay, not terribly exciting, right? It sounds kind of like a kid's song. But say I take this same melody and I play it in that G Lydian mode. I get this. already, just with that change, way more interesting. It doesn't sound like that very familiar major scale anymore. Now, I won't get too far into what you can do with modes in this video because I want to cover a lot more of them, but I'll do that next video. And in the same way that you can, take a major scale and create a bunch of different chords out of it and play those chords off of each other, you could do that with a minor scale. You can do that with a mode too and come up with a bunch of other chords that work in their interesting ways. So there's lots of cool stuff you can do, but I want to cover the other modes. So if you look at what we just did here, right? We wrote out the intervals of a major scale, started on the fourth part of the scale, or the fourth little spot, right? And we followed these little steps and created the Lydian mode. Hopefully I can fit this. Now, there's no spell check on a whiteboard, so don't get mad if I get it wrong. All right, but there's our Lydian mode. Now, we started on the first part of the scale and just made the major scale. But technically, this is a mode. It's one way of applying this scale. It's actually called the Ionian mode. It's kind of annoying to ever call it that because usually we just say major scale, but technically that is what it is. But you can kind of see where this is going. We could start on any one of these and we could apply these intervals in that order and we wind up with a different mode. So let's say we started on number 5. Now I'm going to do most of these on G just so it's easy to compare the difference. But we start on 5, we go up whole step, half step. So far looks a lot like a major scale. And then whole step, half step, whole step. So here's the difference. Looks almost exactly like a G major scale except for right here. In a G major, we'd have an F sharp. In the case of this mode, mode number 5, we don't. We have an F natural. So the 7th is lower. That's really the right way to think of it. Looks just like that. That is what's called Mixolydian. Can't write and talk. Again, might want to double check these spellings before you write this on a test or something. So anyway, Mixolydian is almost exactly like a major scale except that the 7th is lowered. Now this gets used in blues a lot. There's some really cool things you can do with it there. It has some different sounds to the major scale. Again, I'll kind of tease that for the next video, but just know that there's some cool stuff you can do with this scale too. Now in the case of both of these are really similar to the major scale. There's really only one difference between each one of these. And if you look at this method that I just laid out here of counting all the steps and starting in this spot and figuring them out, you might think, wow, that's going to be super hard to remember. I mean, you can tell that there's going to be a lot of other modes, and if you think, okay, the major scale has whole step, half step, whole step, and then the Lydian has whole step, half step, it's going to be impossible to remember that stuff. And you shouldn't anyway. That's not a very useful way to actually use this. It's fine for a test, but that doesn't have much bearing on the real world anyway. What you really want to, or the way you want to think of these is that you have your major scale. You should know that pretty well. You just think a Lydian scale is just like a major scale with a raised fourth, and that's it. That's your Lydian scale, or Lydian mode. The Mixolydian is just like a major scale, but you have that lowered 7th, and there's your Mixolydian. Now, you might look at this and think, wow, okay, there's still 4 more of these things, which is a lot to remember, but it's actually not bad at all. If you look at number 6, let's try doing number 6 starting on G. Okay, we're going to go up from G, whole step, and half step, half step, half step, whole step, right? That was 6. If you notice, that's a minor scale. That's all it is. In fact, that's where the natural minor comes from. It's one of the modes of the major scale. Now this is called the Aeolian. Again, it's almost kind of obnoxious to call it the Aeolian when most people just say minor scale, but that's what it is. So this you should know already. There's nothing new to learn here. Now both of these other scales, the Lydian and the Mixolydian, we just kind of thought of those in terms of the major scale. They're essentially just a major scale with one little tweak to it. If we look at mode number 2, and I'll play that out for you really quickly. It's whole step, half step, whole step, half step, and then a whole step back to our G. This is almost exactly like the minor scale. The only difference is on note number 6. On a minor scale, it would be right here. On mode number 2, the Dorian mode, is right here. So number 6 is just raised up. That's the only difference. So the Dorian is almost just like the minor with that raised 6th, and then the Lydian and the Mixolydian are just like the major with a raised 4th or a lowered 7th. Now, mostly, this is all you need to know. I guess that's kind of a bold statement, but modes 3 and 7. This is the Phrygian mode. This is the Locrian mode. I'll show you the Locrian mode. Most people don't really care for the Locrian mode, and here's why. Starting on G again, if you follow the steps, you get half step. So immediately you have kind of a weird note here. You have this lowered 2nd, and then whole step, half step. And so right away you have this. This is kind of makes a diminished chord if you play some of the notes together. You don't have a 5th, you have this lowered 5th, and then you don't have a major 2nd, you have this lowered 2nd. And both of those make some pretty strange sounds. Now there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to get real experimental and try some new stuff that sounds odd, go for it, have fun. But most people don't tend to like the way this one sounds, so it hardly ever gets used. I think it gets, I think Rachmaninoff used it a couple times, and there's a few small examples in classical music of it being used, but not much. So for the Locrian, learn it if you like, but know that it's not super useful. And then the Phrygian also starts with that little half step. So that's kind of weird already. And then whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. So if you wanted to have a good way to think about this, the Phrygian is just like the minor, but with a lowered 2nd, right? Now, like I was saying with, say, the Lydian, the one that has this raised 4th, and it's just like the major scale. You can do some really cool things with that raised 4th. It has some really awesome sounds and lets you do some really cool stuff, but there's nothing I can think of that sounds better when you lower your 2nd. It's a weird sound, and it doesn't usually lead to anything, at least nothing that I think is very good. So people don't tend to care much about the Phrygian. Probably. Okay. So, to try to tie all this together, I know that there's a lot going on here. Essentially, get a new color. Here's what you need to remember. If you take the major scale, you can apply it in different ways, and you wind up with potentially 7 different modes. 2 of them are not very interesting at all because mode number 1 is just the major scale, and mode number 6 is just the minor scale. So nothing new there. But if you remember that the Lydian and the Mixolydian, those two are, you're going to think of those in terms of the major scale, and there's just one little difference for each. The Lydian has a raised 4th, the Mixolydian has a lowered 7th. That's it, and those two are really useful. And then when you're thinking in terms of the minor scale, you have the Dorian mode. All that is a minor scale with a raised 6th. So in terms of G, just like that. And that's really the main points. That's what you're going to want to remember. The Phrygian and the Locrian, you can go explore those if you like, but like I said, not terribly well used. Now, next video, I want to show you what you can actually do with these things. I mean, if you have a major scale, you can take that major scale and you can put it together to make a bunch of different chords and weave together melodies and work them together and kind of a whole universe of sound or whatever. And then you can do the same thing with a minor scale. You can create other chords over there and make new melodies and weave them together. Well, you can do that same thing with modes. You can take them and make a bunch of new chords that work differently. And it's not a major scale, it's not a minor scale, it's something completely different. Or you can take a mode and just kind of use it as this small variation. You could be in a major scale, but you kind of borrow a few things from, say, the Locrian mode and do some cool little changes or differences or whatever and make some really interesting sounds. So I want to show you all of that next video. But for now, get comfortable with this idea of these different modes and how they tie together. Remember to think of them in terms of either the major scale or the minor scale and just look at the little differences that they have. But anyway, I will leave it at that for now. Thanks for watching as always, and I will see you next video.